Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball Podcast. So excited for this one because I get to venture not only out of the LA area, sort of, but I also get to dabble into the international scene just a little bit with Nicole Chasin. So there's a lot to talk about, so let's just get started. Alrighty, well I've got Nicole here. Nicole, thank you so much for hopping on and working with me. I'm really excited to have you on here. Just a ton of stuff I want to ask you, and I'm sure it will come, but we'll just go ahead and begin with what team do you currently play for, or what teams? We'll start there.
I am on Echo for Coed Elite and Invasion for Women's.
Nice. And how long have you been on Echo? Since the beginning, right? I think since they first...
Yeah, I think it's been 4 or 5 years now. Pretty sure.
Nice. And, well, I guess, so to backtrack a little bit, how long have you actually been playing competitive dodgeball? Because I mean, there was teams before Echo, so I don't want to get too hung up on them. But
I have been playing competitively since 2011, I'd like to say. That was my first, well, I started playing dodgeball in 2009, but I didn't start traveling until 2010, but really competitively until 2011, my first Arizona tournament.
Do you know which one that was by chance? Was it Grand Canyon State Games or
Dodge? It was a Christmas one. it was a holiday one.
Duck the Balls. Duck the Balls, yeah.
Duck the Balls. That's the one.
Oh, nice. Okay, so that was 2011 that you started?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I don't know if I think I was overseas for that one, but and this is kind of like a weird segue, but when I first met you, it was after Crimson Rampage, like after 2010, like you kind of just appeared and you were this awesome stellar player. So I'm trying to see like what was dodgeball for you like before then. So what got you into dodgeball? Like how did you first start playing, and what were your initial thoughts for that?
Well, I moved back to LA from New York in 2008, and my sister roped me into playing kickball. And I didn't really like it very much. So she, after a couple of seasons, pointed me over to the basketball gym and said, they play dodgeball over there, so why don't you try that out? That was in like October 2009, and I signed up like the next day, rolled my ankle my first game.
It's a great welcome to dodgeball.
Yeah, I was wearing the wrong shoes, of course. But yeah, it's been an obsession ever since. I started playing 8.5. A few months later, broke a finger. And yeah, so I don't know. I think I just like pain.
Instant response. Not most people enjoy pain, especially if it's like their first like initial impression of dodgeball or whatever the sport they get into. Was kickball just like not intense enough for you, or because
yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was a nice way to meet people for a hot minute, but at the end of the day, I'm pretty competitive, and I wasn't really a fan of the strategy of bunting ball and run, or bunting.
Yeah.
And to run the base, you know? So I was like, all right, well, I'd really like to do something that actually, you know, has something to do with athletics.
I was going to say has some merit, but same thing.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, kickball, I mean, it's definitely a drinking league / activity, and I think the only fun I had was throwing a kickball like from center field to the home plate, and people look at me like, how did you do that? But that's like the excitement. Everybody else, like you said, they just bunt it, and you're just like, oh, this is whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that take kickball really seriously, and there's a lot of competitive teams out there, but you know, it's when you get a girl to the plate, generally the strategy that I've seen has been to, baby kick and run.
Right.
And I'd rather practice how I could actually be effective and kick the ball without it getting caught within 2 seconds. But, that's fine. It's not for everyone.
For sure. You mentioned something kind of cool about strategy. And I have like a perfect example. I was talking to you about it during Sin City where you were protecting somebody, and you're standing there, and I mean, without trying to paint too glorious of a picture for you, I was just watching this play out. Like I saw my teammate throw, thinking he was going to hit this person on the side, like just clear as day, completely exposed, and you're just like, nah, I'm just going to catch it and protect him because that's what I do. And that's, I mean, you strike me as somebody that's just super defensive. You catch very well. Did you start dodgeball that way, or did you kind of have like an idea of like I'm going to be a defensive catcher, or did you just kind of fall into it, or?
I have to actually thank the current Doom roster for that, because we all played on Syndicate together, and that was one of my first competitive teams, co-ed teams, and it's really those guys that taught me how to catch. So it sucks to say that, but it has to be said. The girl's primary role on a co-ed team, especially when she first gets on it, is, to catch. So, I'm not going to overpower Vince or Nate or Cole or any of those guys.
I mean, few people.
So what can
anyway,
I do?
So.
Yeah, exactly. So what can I do is I can keep them on the court. That's what I can do. So as bad as it sounds, I was a human shield for a while, and that's how I can catch, because I just got tired of getting hit in the face. But I love it, because if I'm the last one on the court, all the guys are out. I don't care who comes back in first. Every guy that I've ever played with has been pretty strong, so it's like, boom, make a catch, let's go.
Right.
But I'm actually, I play much better when I'm protecting my teammates, rather than kind of dilly-dallying on the court. I kind of space out. So if I have some kind of purpose, then I tend to play a little bit better.
Gotcha. Cool. So, I mean, that's kind of like how when me and Kenny were talking about Rolina and Angelique, they're basically just, I guess, put up against the wall, and people were pinch thrown at them until they decided they can catch, or they just like had no fear. Was that similar to your situation, or yours was just more like scenario based, where you're in the situation where you're constantly protecting your teammates, and so you either have the choice of getting hit in the face or catching a ball? Was just sticking with that kind of what helped you learn how to catch better? I don't want to say learn how to catch better, but become such a stellar catcher?
Yeah, we didn't really. I'm the only person really that worked outside of a game with me was Eric Tillmans. In our early days, my early days of 8.5, actually, he was teaching me how to throw it. And because obviously at some point I'm going to have to throw the ball. But no, I never really stood against the wall like that and became a target for practice. I just kind of, every game, every open gym, every tournament, it was, just make one catch. Okay, let's just make another catch. Here's 2 more catches. Gotcha. What can I do now? So it just, I don't know. It was just, I'm just super competitive, and I have to be really, really good at everything that I try to do. And if I'm not, then I'm kind of a person. I know it's a really bad way to think about it, but yeah, I was just motivated to get better. So every match, every open gym, it didn't matter. I needed to make that catch.
Nice. So is this something that like you've kind of just stemmed from childhood, like you've always been this way, or did you have like, did you play in sports prior to dodgeball, like in high school, or I don't want to say conventional sports, but what other athletic background do you have, I guess?
I ran track in high school. I was a hurdler. So, as much of a team sport that is, it's also pretty individual. But really, it was growing up as a twin made me really competitive. Fortunately, my sister and I played different sports, and it wasn't so much of a conflict between us. It was just like, we're two people that look exactly the same, and we have to kind of create an identity for ourselves every single day outside of each other. So it just kind of rolls into the rest of my life.
It's funny you mentioned your sister, because when I was in LA for Open Gym, I ran into her. I was like, "Hey, what's up, Nicole?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm not Nicole. I'm her twin sister." I was like, "I didn't know she had a twin sister, and this is kind of embarrassing." And it was really cool. You guys look identical, and even in Sin City, like I wasn't really 100% sure that was you, so I didn't like say anything, and then I was like, heaven forbid I make that mistake again, and so I'm just going to be even more awkward, not say anything at all until I see you play, and I see you pull that play off. I'm like, okay, if that's not Nicole, then F it, like it's worth the risk. Hey, Nicole, how's it going? Great catch. Like, so.
Yeah, one of the before Alex started playing dodgeball, it was really funny every time she came, because it was intentional that I didn't tell anyone I was a twin, because it's just really funny when people try to talk to her, and she'll hold a conversation. She'll go as long as she possibly can until she has to tell them that they're not actually talking to me.
Oh man, so you just made me that much more paranoid now. Like, I am talking to Nicole, right? And like, this isn't Alex that I'm speaking to. I'm going to find out later.
No. No, it's me.
That's awesome. So, I guess with track, you kind of raised an interesting point in that it's not so much a team sport; it's more individual. So, I guess, and this may be reaching, but is that where you kind of develop like this internal monologue where if you are not doing well, as you said, you're a piece of turd, or is that just something that you were kind of just born with, or is that how did you strengthen that voice, and how do you ensure that you listen to it so that you don't accept being mediocre, or you don't accept being, I don't want to say a failure because that sounds rough, but
no, that's pretty accurate.
How do you strengthen that voice and listen to it?
I think I was born with it, actually, because, going back to having a twin, I'm just naturally competitive, and I naturally have always been, in my sister's shadow, so to speak. She's always been the bookworm, and she got better grades. I was the jock, and I was into band and every other extracurricular activity outside of school, outside of academics. So, and then now I chose a career that's dominated by men. So I'm constantly having to prove myself, either for myself or for, my gender in this industry. So there's just always something. I don't know. Maybe it's just me creating this for myself. But I think it is something that I was born with. But people probably nurtured themselves into it just by playing sports when they were younger, because obviously you want to be the best, you want to get the trophies, you want to get the medals, you want to have the glory and the pride and your parents' love and adoration. So I don't know.
Huh. I'm glad you and I don't normally ask this of people I'm talking to, but what do you do for a living? What is your career? Because it takes you out of the country. You live in France now, so what's that about?
Oh yeah, that's purely by choice. I don't do any business in Europe. No, I work in online media, digital marketing, and I'm director of business development. So being in digital marketing, I could work from anywhere in the world. and I just happened to choose France because I wanted to learn French, and I didn't want to live in the States for a while.
Hmm. Well, that's one way to do it, I guess. Uh,
Yeah.
is there any dodgeball in France or where you live specifically?
Yeah. Yeah, there are a few clubs outside of Paris, pretty close, that I actually belong to one of them, and it's one of the stronger clubs in France, actually. And but it's cloth; it's not foam or rubber or no sting. It's
Mm-hmm.
cloth. I know a lot of people in the States are very against cloth, but I like it. It's just another ball. It's a different strategy. It's a different technique. I don't really throw it as well as I do a no sting or foam, but I can't effectively throw an 8.5 ball all the time either. So
So with that cloth ball, does that I don't want to say it's like is that an equalizer, but because you know how like foam will change the playing field with now with foam, several people are now throwers. Several people can do crazy, weird curves and trick shots, and kind of the same thing with
Mhm.
no sting. Does cloth do that as well for throwers? Like it.
um, I don't. I mean, it does for me a little bit. I have two different throws when I throw a cloth ball. I haven't perfected uh, either one of them yet because I haven't been playing cloth for very long. But I do have one throw I have is kind of does put a spin on the ball that I can't really control. So that's really cool.
Hmm,
uh, but my other throw is just me trying to replicate my no sting or foam throw, and that's not always the best idea, but it works also half the time.
nice. And what about catching? Does that is it
Oh,
harder or easier?
I catch a cloth ball as much as I catch an 8.5,
Nice.
and it hurts just as much.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
just because I mean it hurts a different kind of pain because the 8.5 is rubber, so it's just like a burning pain on your skin. But the cloth ball is harder. It's a harder exterior, so it's more like a you know I just ran into a truck kind of
Nice.
feeling. Yeah. But it's ever so satisfying either way.
I'm sure it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So is this these cloth balls? Are they the ones that are like yellow with the red target and the yeah, it's like the red bullseye, and it's got like this goofy looking dude kind of jumping in the air.
No,
Maybe describing this way too specifically, because
I have
there's
not played with a ball like that,
gotcha. Because
but that may just be design.
yeah, I think well, there might be different entities now because there was once the International Dodgeball Federation, and this was like back in 2006, and they claim that they've been around since 1996. And long story short, they field tested, and I'm not even joking, 72 prototypes of dodgeball to make this world friendly, to make this like not be banned in schools, and they came up with what I think is the cloth ball that we may now know today. And this thing was like basically a water volleyball where it's like throwing a marshmallow, and it's not even you
No.
can't grip it. It's really slick. There's just I don't know. It's just like we used to call it the ball of shame, like back in the day with Tucson, where it was so hard to throw, so hard to catch that if you managed to hit somebody with it, like you were just a terrible person. Like just go to the wall of shame and be sad. So, but
No, that doesn't sound at all like the ball that we play with.
oh my, I might be in for a treat then if I ever get to play.
Yeah, no, this is, I mean, it's like a volleyball. It's filled with air, and it's not like a Nerf ball fabric type of exterior. It's like a soccer ball, but it's not leather.
Huh.
Um, Yeah, it's and then there's no give. I mean, you could just not inflate it 150%, but yeah, I can't. There's no give whatsoever. I cannot. It slips right out of my hands. Um, and
Yet it makes an
but
impact. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah, it's not. It doesn't sound like what you just described at all.
I'll have to find pictures. And actually, we played in a tournament. It was a San Diego. I don't want to say it was a classic, but it was a San Diego tournament in 2013. And no, just kidding, 2011. It was still San Diego, 2011, and they used that ball, and I remember it being just a tournament of the balls of shame, but definitely not impactful. Doesn't sound nearly as solid as one you're describing. And is that IDBF, or is that what organization has that one or uses it?
European Dodgeball Federation, EDBF.
EDBF, okay.
Yeah. So it's the ball that Europe primarily uses. I know there are some clubs and countries that play with rubber, but any national or international competition in Europe is going to be using this ball.
Gotcha. And do the skills translate fairly well? I mean, it doesn't seem like you ever miss a beat when you come back to the States and participate in elite dodgeball tournaments. So is that helping you stay edgy and on your game, or are you doing other things aside from that?
Well, I have to stay fit. I do yoga and spin classes, but yeah, it's outside of that. I go to this club outside of Paris, and I practice with them, and it's a little bit of a change because it's a different ball, but at the end of the day, can I catch it? Can I not? And then I get on another court, it's a different ball, and I have to adjust, obviously, because I'll throw with my shoulder, or I'll throw with my elbow, or some other kind of movement I'll change depending on the ball. But my primary objective has always been to catch. So if I can catch it, then I'm solid.
Gotcha.
And then my throw will come eventually. My first few will be pretty off target and probably shameful, but I'll get it eventually.
Nice. I think that's the case for everybody, especially transitioning from no sting to rubber and then rubber to foam. It's like the first 3 or 4 just garbage. They're either
it's pretty hard.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's also frustrating. You're just like, what happened to me? I just forgot how to function. This is ridiculous.
I know. There was one time I hadn't played no sting in, I don't even know, months, and I threw that ball. I had been playing foam, and I threw that no sting ball, and it didn't even reach halfway to the target, to my intended target. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. That sucked.
I love that. Just it's like that sad. Oh man.
Have I played dodgeball before?
I'm new. This is a good time to be Alex. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So I guess on that note, what do you have a favorite style of ball, since foam, no sting, 8.5, cloth, nothing in particular?
No, I really like 8.5 because it's the most competitive ball. It's the most competitive ball because it hurts the most. It's also the biggest, and I like to play against the guys, so it's it's one of those. But I really like foam. I really like throwing foam. I can't catch it as well as I catch 8.5, but I really like throwing it. So it just depends, I guess. It also depends on the team that I'm playing on with. With women's, obviously, I like 8.5, but I really like no sting for women's, and for co-ed, it's 8.5 for me. But everyone has their preferences. I don't really favor any of the ball types because in Europe, cloth is super, super competitive, and it's like every other ball type to them is like bleh. Right. No. Just like in the States, cloth is that.
I was just gonna say we're the
So
exact opposite, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. So, but I like playing with all of them. It just depends because I like to change up the style and the strategy, and I like how different they are.
That's kind of a testament to your abilities as a player. Like if you're truly a good dodgeball player, and I might be burning myself here, you should be versatile regardless of rule set or dodgeball type
I
used.
agree.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I gotta stop shaking my fist at foam. Just be like, fine. I hate it because I suck and I need to get better. So be it. But
yeah. Well, yeah. That's why you have to keep playing. I mean,
yeah,
there was my first few years with WDBF. I played foam once a year, twice a year, maybe. You know, so you just have to want to do well with it, not just pick it up and say, okay, well, it's foam ball. Bam.
yep. So so addition to you said spinning and yoga, and then obviously getting to play in France. Is there anything else that you do to work on your dodgeball conditioning and skills, or any other like routines that you employ?
No, I'm really bad at those. Actually, I work so much that I even forget to eat sometimes.
Hmm.
But I no, outside of that, I spend my time laying on lacrosse balls and foam rollers just to, heal my body. But it's just, I'm just fortunate that I I grew up pretty active, so I don't tend to lose as long as I stay fit. I feel like I can ad- adjust pretty easily to whatever. I mean, I have played in so many tournaments that I think I underperform in. So I can't say that I'm always good to go
Right.
when I haven't played in a while, but pretty much eventually, I think the adjustment period is pretty small. And, if you're athletic, then I think you're in a good place.
It's kind of like just muscle memory at that point, and maybe just a little bit
Yeah.
of conditioning, maybe a couple balls fly at your face a little bit, and then you start to
Yeah.
come
It's
back to
like, oh,
reality.
exactly.
Yeah, I know that feeling pretty well. I
Yeah.
was going to ask, do you have like any mental processes or thoughts? Like you look at Glenn, and the guy is stoic and scary looking, but really he's just getting into the mindset of I'm gonna murder everybody in front of me. Same thing with Kenny. I'm daydreaming. I'm always thinking about God knows what. Do you have anything that kind of just makes you like, even if you're not performing well, instead of like beating yourself up, is there like a something you think of that kind of gets you jazzed and able to perform well? Because you guys are always in, Echoes always seems to be top three. Same thing with Invasion. So how do you keep up with that
Well,
mentally?
I mean, I don't. Everyone that knows me can attest to my instability emotionally. Um, Recently, actually, I've just taken the habit into listening to music. I listen to country music, and it kind of keeps me happy. So
Wouldn't have expected that.
every minute that I possibly can off the court, if I if I'm in a bad headspace or anything, as soon as I leave the court, headphones, country music, and I'm out.
Hmm.
Everyone can leave me alone. I just need to listen to my music. um, that's what I've been doing recently because, I am one of those people that gets into my head a lot. And when I underperform, I'm really hard on myself. So I think that listening to music has really helped me just kind of bring myself back up because nobody else really can do it for me.
Yeah, it goes back to that track mentality where you're in your own head. You have
Yeah.
to get yourself out of it. I love that. What like, I wasn't expecting country music.
I know nobody ever does.
Yeah, like if I was watching this play out, I'd be like, she's got to be listening to rock, hip hop. I would never think country. What songs or what artists, or do you have like a specific song, if you don't mind sharing or divulging that?
Well, I listen to a lot of Josh Turner. There's like the Luke Bryans and the Jason Aldeans and Kip Moores, but yeah, I listen to a lot of Josh Turner.
Gotcha. So more like recent country and not.
He has a lot of recent stuff, but he's not too recent. I also sometimes I just put on Spotify playlists because I don't know every artist. I used to listen to a lot of Reba, so
Okay.
but that's not really it's not really the type of music that'll amp me up during Dodgeball. So yeah, it's a lot of more recent stuff that will keep me amped. But Thomas Rhett. But I try to keep it upbeat, and that's generally more of the recent stuff.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
a lot of pop crossovers.
If you had said like George Strait, like '90s Brooks and Dunn, I'd be like, it's really a stretch for me. But okay, 'cause I like country, but I like some of the older stuff. You can tell.
No, I do listen to a lot of George Strait also, but not for Dodgeball, really.
Gotcha. So let's go back to Elite and kind of like the timeline I was setting up. What got you into Elite? I guess getting ahead of myself there. How did you get started? Like when it started popping up, were you just like, this is something I'm going to be a part of? Was there no question, or did you have any like hesitations, or how did that start?
No, I didn't have any hesitations. I was always on board with Elite from day one. It was just we all played NDL, and we all kind of moved on. And when Mark and Vince started doing the Elite stuff, then it was an obvious movement for us. Movement, is that the right word? And then, of course, when the women's community started growing, and Elite included a women's division, and it was, the place to be for competitive dodgeball. So, of course, I was going to be part of that.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point because, and movement's kind of a good word because you had the NDL being the main driving force for the longest time, and with all its faults and whatnot, and can definitely pick them apart for an hour or so. But they didn't really have too much of a women's tournament going on. They had like their division, but they didn't have like Elite was doing, where they would have. Did it start with like the red versus green, like they were just team colors playing against each other?
Yeah, it was draft. First couple of years or first few years of Elite Women's was draft. So it was red, yellow, black, white. Green may have been one of them. But yeah, my sister's first dodgeball experience was Elite's first women's division, women's tournament, actually.
Wow. Huh. And is this forgive me if I butcher this, is this Bells of the Ball, or is that different?
No, that's WDS. That does Bells of the Ball.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But that's a good one too. That one's no staying, and then Elite Women started as 8.5.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, it wasn't, because even as I was asking, I was like, well, I don't think Mark would call it that. I think it would just be a straight up tournament. So
yeah.
Gotcha. That's funny how, because I can't even remember the NDL even having like a solid women's only event, because there's only like maybe one or two teams that would show up, and half of them would be from Arizona, so it was kind of like non-existent. So to see it actually
Yeah, mine was half Arizona, half California too.
It's like we're always borrowing from each other.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if I don't actually remember if there was an official women's division, but we did have a women's team, and I think we played in open, not actually women's. Because I do remember playing against Portland in 2011 or 2012 or something like that. And it was all dudes. And we got on the court and I was like, oh crap.
I Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there actually was a division. There's always been advertised as one, but then an all women's team would show up. Like I think the Dodge Bells back in
Dodge
2000.
dolls. That
Well,
was us.
you guys are Dodge Bells. Well, before that, 2006, 2007, there was a Dodge Bells
Oh
out
wow.
of Seattle.
Oh
Same thing
cool.
though, but they would show up and hey, guess what? Just kidding. There really isn't a women's thing here. And oh my goodness, okay, it's starting to come back to me. Um, 2007, there was an almost women's division. And unfortunately, what that was just teams of three or four or five women playing against each other in excess of like three or four, or there was like four or five teams of three to four players. And it was just like this hastily, crappily thrown around event. And I remember the reason why I know it so well is because Jackie was really upset about it, which she had every right to be because it was just so lame. Like it's not what you would expect, especially when you're paying and traveling out. So yeah, I guess again, not to dig into too much of the negativity around the NDL, but there really hasn't been a solid women's division. So that's pretty awesome that WDS and Elite Dodgeball kind of got that going. So movement's pretty legit way to paint it, I think. And Dodge Dolls. So that was that the pink team? Pink and white?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, I remember them. Yep.
That was us. I think I still have my uniform somewhere.
Nice. Yeah, it's because you had the Ball Busters. That's the other team.
Hmm.
And I remember in 2010 they were going to play against the Hawaii. No. The team from New Zealand, and they were doing that haka,
Hmm.
however you pronounce it. And it was so cool and so intimidating. But as I was watching, I was like, these girls are going to rip this team apart. And sure enough, they did. It was like over in, like under 30 seconds. And I remember Ed Prentice saying to them, hey, you need to take it easy on these guys. And it was just like, what kind of whack division is this? Like, this is something needs to come along that's better. And thank God something has. And to kind of segue into that, after 2011, I would like to believe that's when people like Bill Fair and yourself may have started looking into the international scene. Can you talk about that a little bit? Or
Yeah.
there's so many questions, so I'll just kind of let you kind of just introduce us to it and see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, it was Bill spearheaded that whole thing. I hopped on board. I mean, Duck the Balls tournament was the first time I met Bill and Chris and everyone in Arizona, actually. And it was kind of like my tryout to go to New Zealand with him, because there was something on Facebook that he posted that I don't know how it got to me, but the fact that he was going to New Zealand, I was completely interested in because that's my great grandfather was born there. So I was interested to find my roots. And so I hit him up and I was like, I can play dodgeball and I can go to New Zealand. Can I come? And he's like, yeah, but are you good? Who are you? So pretty much when I went to Duck the Balls, I was like, I have to be a monster. I want to go to New Zealand. So fortunately, I played well.
Nice.
And we went to New Zealand a few months later and made some really cool friends. And, a year later, the first WDBF Invitational was in Malaysia.
Gotcha. That's funny. So, yeah, because I was kind of painting the picture back then where I come back and then boom, you're there, and it wasn't even like a who is this person. It just seemed like you were already a staple. Like you might as well have been there years prior. Like you were just such a like you. I guess you didn't, and I wasn't looking at it this way, but you didn't have anything to prove, if that makes sense. Because it was like, oh well, if she's good enough to be on Rampage, and she's clearly a monster, so it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool seeing how that played out, because I wasn't familiar with how you came aboard, and to think that it was just like a simple Facebook message, not out of coincidence, but you always wonder, like, how did this person get to this part of dodgeball, or how did they get involved, or how did they stick around, or I love asking people and finding out about that, because it's such a cool thing to see what kept people around, and how they evolved the way they did. What so after Malaysia, so that was like the first official world championship then?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, 2012 was Kuala Lumpur, and 2013 was in New Zealand, and 2014 was in Hong Kong, 2015 Vegas, 2016 Melbourne. I almost said Toronto, and then 2017 was Toronto.
Gotcha. And then 2018 is in LA, right?
In LA, yeah.
And have you been on Team USA this whole time?
Yep.
Nice.
And actually, 2017 was my last year.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I moved on to the administrative side.
Gotcha. And why did you want to get involved in that? Because it's one thing to get super into just playing dodgeball, but getting involved on the administrative side of anything, whether it's just a small league to something huge like USA Dodgeball, Elite Dodgeball, what have you, I'm sure it comes with just plenty of gripes and comments and stresses. But
yeah.
Why did you decide to get involved?
I mean, there's been a lot of conflict in the community in the last couple of years, and I wanted to be part of moving it forward, and part of that meant that I needed to choose whether or not I was going to be a player or an organizer. And up until now, I've been kind of half-stepping in both worlds without really being successful in or completely successful in either. So this year, I just had to make a choice, and I think I made the right choice.
Yeah, it's that makes plenty of sense.
It's painful, not to be trying out, or not to, but someone needs to be on the selection committee. Someone needs to be helping put on the tournament. It can't just be on one or two people. And fortunately, this year it's Jake and Mark and me and Mike Costanza and the whole USA Dodgeball board, and a few other people that have actually reached out to us to volunteer help. So it's a whole team, and I'm very excited to see what we can do.
Well, for what it's worth, that's really awesome of you, because it's not something that, and I'm not trying to insinuate this in any way, but this isn't something that you can just kind of you have to.
Yeah.
What you guys are trying to do is, eventually going to one day pave the way for an actual Olympic team. It's going to just completely blow up dodgeball on the U.S. front. It's going to bring about everything that we've all wanted since like day 2 or 3 of playing dodgeball. I say day 2 because we didn't realize, oh wow, there isn't much after this, but that's hats off to you for being willing to sacrifice that. And it's anytime somebody's willing to step up and do something for the greater good, whether that's just reffing or organizing events or even putting themselves on a platform on the national and international scene, that's incredible. So I can't put myself in your position. Like, I imagine that was pretty rough, but I really think it's going to pay off. And I would imagine it's going to go really far because of decisions like that, and individuals like yourself that are willing to put that first over themselves. That's something that's really hard for people to do. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
So, I guess going into Team USA a little bit for both women's and men, is the selection process going to be similar, where you're going to have scouts that are like kind of watching people throughout these events, and
Yeah.
you're taking applications and things of that nature? So it's going to be like that for both sides, or?
We're not doing the application thing, highlight video thing anymore. This year, it's we have a men's scout and a women's scout in each region, and then so north, south, east, and west are covered, and then Mark and I on the national front as like tiebreaker as well. So there's 5 committee members on the men's and 5 committee members on the women's. So we're going to be attending, all of us, as many tournaments as we can. Obviously, Mark runs most of them, so he'll be at most of them. But each region will be covered, and we're going to scout for real, not just, hey, you want to come play, submit a highlight video and a bio, and then we'll look at you. It's like, no, like legitimately, this person is a good dodgeball player, who may or may not be able to put together a highlight video, but we should watch them. And I think that's how most other sports do it. And, we've been doing the highlight video and bio submissions for since day one, actually. So, and it's worked for the most part. It's just the one thing that we didn't do was attend most of the tournaments. Like Bill and I would attend tournaments as much as we could, but we couldn't be at every single one of them. So we relied on the highlight videos for a really long time. And,
Right.
That may or may not have been the best idea, but it was the best idea at the time. So, as with anything, we progress, and every year we try to do better. And, this year is substantially better than what we've accomplished in the past, just from the few months since everyone has come together.
What do you think that was? Like, was it just the stars finally aligned and people decided to get on the same page, or was this a long time coming behind the scenes? We just didn't know on the outside, or because it.
Yeah, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that people don't know about. But at the same time, people don't need to know about it unless it's something real. There's always something to talk about. There's always something to plan. There's always something to want and hope for.
Right.
But everyone coming together was a long and heartfelt process. So on all sides, and I think it's working out now because we're all willing to talk and work together, and there's a lot of factors. It's
Gotcha.
not all on one person's shoulders anymore.
So it's not so much. Let me think for a second, because I want to ask, I guess, the correct way without sounding the way it could sound. When USA Dodgeball was announced, it was fantastic. That's awesome. When the membership portion was announced, fantastic, awesome. When they announced that they're doing scouts for Team USA, that is outstanding. But it's also about flipping time that it's done right, and without trying to bring about any negativity on that. Again, is that just because it took a while to get to this point, or I guess was there like a tipping point that made that happen, or?
Yeah, I mean, we always tried to travel and see people play, face to face. we weren't always successful at it, because, there was Bill and there was me on the men's and women's. Well, Bill and Santi on the men's side, but me on the women's. And, every year nobody knew this because I always took the brunt of it. But, I did have people advising me, in the background when it came to picking the team. So, I wasn't alone. I announced it alone, but there were unofficial voices in years past. But this is the first very, very transparent year since inception.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny because it would seem on every thread there would be you battling it out with people and explaining things in a very matter-of-fact, very articulate way. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yes, Nicole is a good person. She wouldn't be lying. She wouldn't be, this isn't her ego talking or making these decisions or what have you. So again, without spending too much time on that, it's really cool seeing how it's now all unfolding. And I mean, if you ask me, you look at the timeline of Dodgeball, 2004, roughly 2003 to 2018. And then you look at within that window of when international started happening, 2012 to 2018. I mean, 6 years, that's not bad. I mean, we waited a very long time for a women's division. We waited a very long time for a well-run national event. We waited a long time for regional. So it's about time, yes, but it's also, it's like the blink of an eye. I mean, I can't imagine what it's going to be like 2-3 years from now. It's going to be amazing. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, someone has to make the mistakes for another person to, improve on the process. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because how else would you do it? Like, you can't just come in and do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Time and time again. That's wow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't always the friendliest forum, but at the same time, it was. These things need to happen. Someone needs to take charge from the get-go to try and do something bigger. And there's going to be mistakes made along the way, and everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to crap on someone. Someone's always going to be undervalued, underappreciated, and it's just eventually things get better and things get improved and everyone becomes happy again. Right. So
or as happy as you can make them.
Life. Yeah.
That's really awesome. That's a good way to put it, where you have to learn. Somebody's got to make the mistakes and you have to learn from them. That is, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a flip-flopper with the NDL, but when they first came on, I was just like so enamored and enthralled and just believed every single thing you could possibly believe about them. And over time, I started seeing it for what it really was and how other people started seeing it. And I was like, yeah, well, whatever. It sucks. They suck. They're not doing what I want fast enough for me, so F them and whatnot. But because of the nature of this podcast and just looking back, it's like you said, somebody had to go in there and get it started. Somebody had to go in there and have a vision, and that vision may have been distorted, but somebody else picked it up and they learned from those mistakes when it was time to, when the NDL, for whatever reason, fell apart or did not continue to correct herself or course correct, somebody else did, and we're all better off for it. And the majority of us are still playing dodgeball because of the NDL. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I see it now.
I started there too.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's... Go ahead.
I didn't get too close to the environment, I guess, to really have a strong opinion on the NDL. I have, my own opinions. But everyone always wishes for more playtime. Everyone always wishes that the pools were picked differently, or there's always something. But I never really got too close to the NDL quote unquote drama to really have an opinion on things that have happened. But if it wasn't for the NDL, I wouldn't have been so into competitive dodgeball at the same time. And it's just or maybe I could have.
Yeah, who's to
LA
say?
is
How
very
would you know?
competitive. Arizona is very competitive. You never know. So can't really say that, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, but it's also interesting to think, what if the first international thing was not going to be in New Zealand? Would you have messaged Bill? Would that have happened? What if you never got into trying kickball? Or what if you loved kickball? You'd be a completely different person maybe. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's always the what ifs that are kind of fun to think about just for a few seconds before it gets crazy and you get an existential crisis. But
Yeah.
it's always fun thinking about how things could have been, and then hopefully they make you appreciate how things are. So
Yeah.
I don't want to spend too much more time on the international scene, but I would like to ask, what is there anything specific you're looking for in a Team USA player? I mean, obviously we want the best of the best, but is it enough to just be really freaking good, or are there other things that people might want to know about so they can stand out?
The one thing that I've always tried to put together, the team that I've always tried to put together each year has been the most flexible and adaptable. So, multiple skill sets, not just like single role player types,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, great, you can be, this monster catcher, but, when you throw a ball, do you hit your targets, or do you work with your teammates? Do you protect your teammates? Do you think about what you're going to do before you throw? I mean, I can't even ask that because half the time I don't do that. But it's just, I look at, the decisions that a player makes. It's like, okay, when they decide to catch, if ever they decide to catch, when they decide to throw, who did they decide to throw with? Do they talk to their team, or do they have some kind of hero complex, or court awareness? All of the various factors that make a player, but also that make a veteran player. You can't just be in your first few months of playing dodgeball and just miraculously have every single
Like all the ins and outs and nuances of dodgeball.
Exactly. There was one girl that I looked at a few years ago, and she had so much potential, but at the same time, zero court awareness. Like, great, you can throw a ball, but you're completely useless otherwise. So it's just like, let's kind of hone your skills and see in a couple of years what you look like as a player, kind of thing. And that's why there are different levels of competition in every other sport. So it's, but every year I try to put together a team with the most flexible players. Like Brittany can throw and catch like a beast. Kate can throw and catch, and she moves like a friggin' ninja. Like people like that. But they grew up as athletes, so obviously they're just on the higher level of the tier triangle that I'm looking at.
Gotcha.
But that's how you put the best team together, in my opinion. That may not be the best way to think all the time, but the women's team, U.S. women's team, has medaled every single year. So I couldn't be that bad.
I was just gonna say, proof's in the pudding, kind of a expression
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it still amazes me that dodgeball is still more than just having a good arm and a good pair of hands. Like, there's a mental aspect to it that it may last a couple of milliseconds when you're calculating what you're doing, but you have to reason and rationalize why you did what you did. Almost, have like those, obviously, I don't know why I threw at that person. That was dumb. That was just like reflex, but there's definitely a mental aspect to the game that, like you said, once you have, I don't want to say higher tier, higher caliber players, but you get to a level where there's a sense of maturity that's needed that it's really cool that you can start looking for it now. Like, it's not enough to just round up three or excuse me, five or six people and huck balls at people. There's way more involved now, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. So going back to like how much things have changed and all kinds of great things that are happening now, is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to the most this year for 2018?
Well, I mean, I'm really looking forward to Worlds in LA in 2018, but I'm, I am really looking forward to the national combine, actually, more so because the selection of the team USA is a lot different than we've been doing every single year, and to see the top 10 players, or however many from each side, men's and women's, to come together in one place to, for the actual national tryouts, and how that's going to play out with, like, I don't know if we're going to have drills or tourney style this, and I'm really looking forward to that because we're attending a lot of tournaments this year. I'm seeing a lot of new names, dodgeball faces I haven't met yet, and it's different being a little bit on the outside these days. Being on the administrative side, I can't really be focused on being a player. So, my eyes have opened to a whole new world right now. And there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. Every single tournament that I can attend, especially the Combine. I'm attending Twin Cities Throwdown for the first time in April. And hopefully, with the growth of WDBF and the international community as well, more countries, more faces. So, I mean, I think 2018 is just a big year of things to look forward to.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just so funny because, like, earlier you mentioned Bill Fair kind of spearheaded this whole thing, and for most teams, it's like we just want to win the national championship or the NDL Dodgeball World Championship and Convention, however you want to say it, and that's it. But then after that, like, just entire world opened up with so much opportunity and so many faces and characters and players and teams. It's really cool that's I guess like 2018 kind of feels like, I don't want to say like the second renaissance, but that's kind of what it felt like in 2012. It's like, oh man, there's an international scene. Cool. Now it's, oh man, there's like a combine happening now. There's like all this other stuff that is just, I don't know. For me, it just feels like another surge of excitement for dodgeball. So
Yeah.
when I find myself asking this question, especially, I mean, we're barely in, I guess we're in March now. We're barely in March, and there's my favorite thing to look forward to in 2018 has already changed like 3 or 4 times. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm knock on wood, but so far it seems like it's going to be a really, really awesome year.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, there's the elite season, which, everyone looks forward to
Right.
every single year. But, everything that USA Dodgeball is doing and is a part of is just, one big thing and a collection of things to be excited about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a really exciting time.
For sure. speaking of exciting times, what is your favorite dodgeball memory to date?
uh,
Or what's the first one that comes to mind, or just something that you really just kind of treasure and I don't want to say hold dear because that sounds cheesy, but
you know, the I treasure actually this one really miraculous, I don't know how it happened, catch on Billy.
uh-oh.
It kind of like threw me back 2 feet. I had jumped up. I was protecting a teammate, and I jumped up, and I don't know why I jumped up. It was just one of those, things where I really wanted to learn how to jump. I just started jumping at every opportunity that I got, and this was one of them. And I jumped up and pure Cole style, just like grabbed onto this ball midair, don't know how, and I landed like 2 feet back on the court. And I was like, well, I just did that.
It just happened.
That's great. Yeah. Did someone document this?
We'll have to scour the internet and see if that's available somewhere.
There was no documentation. I was so sad.
I don't believe that for a second. Somebody had to have been filming.
No, there was a GoPro, but it was a bad angle, so you didn't actually see the catch happening. You saw like it was behind me, so you saw me jump in the air and land, but you didn't actually see the catching of the ball.
Just like this force push you back and you land.
Yeah. It was amazing, except it was the wrong view.
Dang. Do you remember when that was? Like what year or what event?
It was in the last few years because it was Echo. I was already on Echo, and I was protecting Terry.
Nice.
So yeah, it was that. And then there was one tournament actually in Arizona. It was one of the 10K tournaments where I was the last one on the court, and it was against. It was Rampage. I was on Rampage, and Brian Armin's team.
Headhunters?
Yeah, it was Headhunters. So it was like 3 guys. I think it was Chris Bell also. I'm not sure. But definitely Brian Armin because he's the one that broke my finger. But it was I was the last one on the court, and it was 3 guys, 3 balls. And I tried to catch all 3 because they just miraculously met my body at one time in the same place. So if I was, that good, I could have somehow, manipulated my body into holding on to all 3 balls, but no, it didn't happen. But I actually dislocated my finger trying to catch one of those balls. And I think the tournament had just began. It was like the 3rd game of the day or something. And I looked down and my index finger was in the shape of an L. Oh, I had never broken a finger in my entire life. Oh, no, I did. My pinky, my first dodgeball open gym, 8.5. But like severely, I've never dislocated a finger. I've never broken an arm or a leg, anything. And I looked down and my finger was, in the shape of an L. And then someone came running over Sarah Moravitz.
Nice.
Yeah, she came running over with ibuprofen, and Kai Harrell was like, put it back into place, put it back into place. You have like 10 seconds to do it. Like screaming in my ear, like, put it back, put it back, put it back. So I put
only
it
have
back.
10 seconds.
Yeah, because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And he said, if you don't put it back now, it's going to hurt like hell in about 10 seconds. So do it now. So I just kind of, I popped it. I put it back into place and then taped it up. And I still had like the rest of the day to go.
Jeez.
So that was pretty fun.
And that's a good memory of yours. That's one that sticks out.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I have a few of those.
I mean, that's better than the opposite, where it turns you off to the sport entirely, or you just give up after that. So, I mean, that's...
Yeah, no, I like pain, remember?
Yeah, tough one. That's... don't know how I would do. I broke my finger one time, and maybe it's like this universal rule where you have 10 seconds to pop it back in place, but unfortunately for me, it wasn't dislocated; it was broken, and by action of me popping it into place, I actually broke it 2 more times.
Oh,
So, but I still played. I still finished the game and saw the rest of the tournament play out. But if it was shaped like an L, I think I would have freaked out though. I'd be like, no, I'm done. This is freaking me out a little bit too much. But yeah, it's tough. I don't know too many people that would be like, yeah, this is the sport I want to play. This is my first time and broke a finger. Don't care. I'm gonna come right back as soon as I heal up. So that's awesome.
yeah. I mean, I think it was just it's. I'm so anti on co-ed teams, and especially 8.5. I always argued Bill about having a rotator, a sub, and this one tournament, I won the argument. We only had 2 girls, and
Go figure.
if I had stopped playing, I would have left Kate on her own. So it was one of those like, yeah, well, this is what you asked for, so keep playing.
That's such a not a sour spot, but I totally understand both sides. Like from as a former co-ed captain, I want 3 girls because heaven forbid something happened to them and then we lose our eligibility. Like there's a little bit more of a penalty for co-ed teams versus losing one of your 5 other guys on the open team.
Yeah.
But then it just also really sucks to have to rotate half your squad every time if you have 3 girls. So I totally get both sides, but like I don't want to say it's funny, but I can just the irony where you finally like win the argument and then all of a sudden, oh crap, injury, and then I can only imagine what's going on through Bill's mind. Like he probably wants to yell, "I told you so," but you're injured.
Oh,
so
he did.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. He laughed while he did it. He wasn't angry. He just laughed.
Oh man. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Well, I did, and because we had to kind of shift this interview a little bit more ahead of schedule than previously, I did manage to source one question from Sergio Leone. He asked, I'm going to kind of reword it a little bit. Are there any players that inspired you to play, step up, or that you look to, like, I want to play like this person? And that could be from the very beginning to now even.
I mean, I've been playing for 9 years. So in the beginning, it was, I just want to be good enough to be asked to play on a team. But, and then it turned into, like, I really like how Chelsea Conrad plays. She's like really fluid on the court and very, very graceful. So I always watched how she moved and tried to imitate, her kind of gracefulness. Maybe unsuccessfully a little bit, but and then Kate Gong actually is a very big reason of why I play the way I play now, and also guys like Alan. I really liked the way he played, and when we played on Rampage together, I was always, I was always trying to get out of the way because he could kick me in the face at any time. But I kind of, it's a combination of different players. It's a combination of Alan, Ish, Kate, Chelsea, and Cole. Just a lot of, and Vince and Brittany. It's a lot of the different, like, oh, how do they do that? And, how do they do that? And, okay, I have to, kick my right foot back first, and then maybe I'll just, maybe not fall flat on my face, or, it was just a lot. It's a lot of different things. Like, I learned how to jump because of Alan and Cole. And I learned a lot of my throwing from, working with Eric Tillmans and watching Ish, and a lot of my movements, my shuffling back and forth from Kate. So yeah, it's a few different players.
Nice. You kind of just picked and pulled from what would work for you the best, and
Yeah, I just I see something someone's doing, and I'm like, oh, how do I do that?
nice. That's so cool because just a different mentality, I guess. And I'm not going to try to frame every single competitive person out there, but it's the difference between, man, I wish I could do that, to how do I do that? And it's the people I feel that actually figure it out, take the time, study, and try it that actually end up being the upper tier of players. So that's really cool. But I really think, in my experience, there's going to be, I won't say like an evolution of players, but you're going to have the people that are willing to put in the hard work because they've just decided that they want to make dodgeball their thing, and they're going to put the work in, they're going to do really well, they're going to practice, and that could be upbringing as a child, that could be, exposure to sports growing up, or that could just be bad mindset like Kenny. It was really awesome talking to him, finding out that he wasn't born Kenny Dodgefather Cox. He became that through hard work. And then you have other players that are just naturally good, but they don't do anything with it. They don't hone it. They don't rise while the other party is rising, so to speak. And it's just really cool to see that through another perspective. I wasn't really expecting that in dodgeball just yet. So kind of a cool theme to have, and just wanted to throw it out there. It's neat. Sergio did ask, I guess, like a multi-part question. The other one was, who do you think will take women's game to the future? That's kind of
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of a weird one because like we're still in the future. Like I think you're still the future. I don't. Unless I can think of a way to change
I
that
think
one.
he's asking about, maybe my opinion on who the next,
Next level
all
player
star
would be.
is. Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that, or
I mean, I really think that, without, I don't know, there's been so much like back and forth with like the rankings coming out and everything. But I mean, in the future, like obviously we have a, roster of, amazing women, currently, already, everyone from like Brittany and Kate, Azalea, like, I really have, I'm really interested to see how Ashley Cook from Minnesota
yeah, she's
does.
popping up a lot.
Yeah, uh, she's pretty good, and I'm actually really excited to see a lot of the Northwest girls. I was really amped. I was super pumped when Seattle and Portland started coming to the elite tournaments. So, I think that we'll be seeing some pretty good talent coming from the Northwest. But yeah, I mean, we have like Angelique and Rolina. It's just there's too many. Like I don't even know. I say Ashley because she's the youngest. We're we've been playing for years and years, and I don't know how long Ashley's been playing, but I think she would be at the top of my list. One, because she's the youngest, and she's like this nice shiny little toy that I think about every time I'm like, ooh, new dodgeball player, but she's been playing for a while. But
She's
yeah.
pretty vibrant.
Yeah,
Watching her play.
yeah, she's grown a lot in the last few years from what I've seen. So I'm really excited to see what the next few years has in store for her. I mean, Meg Becker is another one out of LA. So it's just there's a few different girls that are coming out of the woodwork that maybe were a little too shy to come forward before. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's like you said. I mean, 2018. This is a great start so far, and I'm sure it's just the beginning, and we'll be seeing more new faces and more new names coming out of the woodwork and just showing up, and like, wow, where were you this whole time? But better now than ever.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I guess so one question I did have that popped up is, do you have any advice for players that they want to get better, but they're kind of just struggling, and it could be for a mixture of things. Just any advice that would get them to stick with it or keep at it, and that there's brighter pastures ahead.
Um, I was really fortunate to be surrounded by a really good group of people, and it's very easy to find in dodgeball. So I know that it can be really it can be really discouraging sometimes. And I've been there. Like, I've been there recently, where sometimes I'm just like, I just want to turn everything off, and maybe I'll just stop playing dodgeball for a while. But it's I think that people that are a little discouraged right now, or haven't found their groove yet, is just because maybe they haven't found that core group that they want to continue to work with or stick through, or I don't know. For me, it was a lot of my environment. My dodgeball crew, like immediate dodgeball crew, were people that I wanted to be around outside of dodgeball. So I think that if anyone becomes discouraged in the dodgeball community, it's probably because they don't know some people who they're around on a personal level. And for me, that was a really big factor in staying in the community, because I think you should want to be around the people that you're going to be around.
That makes sense.
But also, these people also made me want to be better. They made me want to be a better person, a better dodgeball player. And, so without knowing the actual situation that someone is in, why they're being discouraged, like, sure, you get hit in the face a few times. But, I knew someone when we first started playing dodgeball. Man, this girl, her head was a moving target, and I thought she was going to break in half every time she got hit with a ball, and she stuck with it for years. And, I think it was because, like, all of her friends still wanted to play dodgeball, and she wanted to be with her friends, and she wanted to, get better and not be a moving face target. Like, we had a fun group, and it just made it worth it.
That's pretty cool. So at some point, yeah, you have to decide that you're going to get strong for yourself, or you have to be the reason for that. But it also does not necessarily mean that you have to kind of go it alone. You can look to your friends. You can look to the vast array of amazing people you'll meet playing dodgeball to kind of help reinforce that and get you there. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying that I might butcher, but it's like, it's a rising tide elevates all ships. Yeah, I definitely butchered that. But the idea is, like, if y'all raise together, it just makes that much more sweeter, or something like that. Some kind of magical frou-frou nonsense. But
yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it all comes down to teamwork at the same time too. So
yeah, it is a team sport, so it makes sense. Cool. Well, that's all I got. So we'll go ahead and end it there. So it was mentioned during my conversation with Alan that Bill Fair, when he was the captain of Rampage, he had some pretty grandiose sights set for the team, and that winning the National Dodgeball League World Championship and Convention was just the beginning. It was just another step, and it literally opened up the world and paved the way to some amazing leaps in dodgeball, with a Team USA and the U.S. joining the World Dodgeball Federation, and just the progress that has been made with it and many other countries getting brought into the fold. It's really incredible. I mentioned, Dodgeball's been around 2002, 2003. We're at 2018, and now we have scouts for Team USA. And yeah, it was a rocky start, but it's a start. And that's probably the most biggest takeaway that I have from interviewing Nicole. And just, again, witnessing how it's all come together is just remarkable. Really happy that I was able to finally start venturing into it in my 10th episode. Surprised I even got to 10 episodes. There's so much more to talk about, so much more people I want to interview. It's really just the beginning. And on that note, though, I appreciate all the questions I received, all the feedback I received, all the suggestions, all the input, people taking time out of their busy schedule to talk dodgeball with me for a little while. I just appreciate it so much. So on that note, please continue to chime in as you see fit, and have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week. Thanks. That'll have to do because Doomsday is happening behind me. Armageddon. We all gonna die.